Did you know that ancient Egyptians used to eat mummies as a medicine? Or that they had a game of chance that involved throwing sticks? Or that they sometimes killed their servants and buried them with their masters? If you want to learn more about these and other dirty facts about ancient Egypt, stay tuned for this video. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. In the previous video, we explored some of the most fascinating and bizarre aspects of ancient Egyptian culture, such as their obsession with the afterlife, their complex hieroglyphs, and their amazing pyramids. But there is still much more to discover about this ancient civilization that ruled the Nile for thousands of years. In this video, we will dive into some of the most shocking and disgusting facts about ancient Egypt that you probably didn't know. These facts will make you rethink everything you thought you knew about the pharaohs and their people. So, without further ado, let's get started. The first fact is that ancient Egyptians used to eat mummies as a medicine. Yes, you heard that right. In the 16th century, Europeans became fascinated by the mummies that were found in Egypt and believed that they had magical healing properties. They imported tons of mummy bandages and ground them into powder, which they then consumed or applied to their wounds. They also ate the flesh and organs of the mummies, thinking that they could cure diseases and prolong their lives. This practice was called mumia, and it lasted until the 19th century when it was finally banned. But the Egyptians themselves also ate mummies, especially in times of famine. They would raid the tombs and dig up the corpses and then cook them or eat them raw. Some even believed that eating the mummies of their ancestors would bring them good luck and protection. The second fact is that ancient Egyptians loved board games. After a hard day's work along the Nile, Egyptians would relax by playing various games, such as Mayhen, Dogs and Jackals, and Senet. Senet was the most popular game, and it dates back to 3500 BC. It was played on a long board with 30 squares, and each player had a set of pieces that they moved according to rolls of dice or throwing sticks. The rules of the game are not fully known, but it seems that it involved some strategy and luck. The game was also considered a symbol of the journey of the soul to the afterlife, and many pharaohs and nobles were buried with their senet boards and pieces. The third fact is that ancient Egyptians sometimes killed their servants and buried them with their masters. This practice was called retainer sacrifice, and it was common in the early periods of Egyptian history. The idea was that the servants would continue to serve their masters in the afterlife and that they would be rewarded for their loyalty. The servants who were chosen for this honor were usually young and healthy, and they were often strangled, stabbed, or poisoned before being placed in the tomb. Sometimes they were even buried alive. The practice was later abolished and replaced by the use of figurines and statues that represented the servants. The fourth fact is that ancient Egyptians forged one of the earliest peace treaties on record. For over 2 centuries, the Egyptians fought against the Hittite Empire for control of lands in modern-day Syria. The conflict resulted in many bloody battles, such as the Battle of Kadesh in 1274 BC, which involved over 5,000 chariots and 40,000 soldiers. But neither side could gain a decisive victory, and both faced threats from other enemies. So, in 1259 BC, the pharaoh Ramses II and the Hittite king Hattusili III negotiated a famous peace treaty which ended the war and established a mutual alliance. The treaty was written in both Egyptian and Hittite, and it was inscribed on a silver tablet and a clay tablet. The treaty is now recognized as one of the oldest surviving peace accords, and a copy of it can be seen at the United Nations Security Council chamber in New York. The fifth fact is that ancient Egyptian women had a wide range of rights and freedoms. Unlike many other ancient societies, Egyptian women enjoyed a great deal of legal and financial independence. They could buy and sell property, serve on juries, make wills, and even enter into legal contracts. They could also divorce their husbands and remarry, and they could initiate lawsuits and testify in court. They could also work in various professions such as doctors, priests, scribes, and artisans. Some women even rose to the highest positions of power, such as queens and pharaohs. The most famous example is Cleopatra VII, who ruled Egypt from 51 to 30 BC and was also one of the few members of the Ptolemaic dynasty to speak the Egyptian language. The sixth fact is that ancient Egyptians had a complex system of writing that involved more than 700 symbols. These symbols are called hieroglyphs, and they were used to write the sacred and official texts of the Egyptians. Hieroglyphs could be written in rows or columns, and they could be read from left to right, right to left, or top to bottom, depending on the direction of the symbols. Hieroglyphs were also used to write the names of the pharaohs and the gods, and they were often carved on monuments and temples. But hieroglyphs were not the only form of writing in ancient Egypt. The Egyptians also used a simpler script called hieratic, which was used for everyday purposes, such as letters, contracts, and records. Hieratic was written on papyrus, a paper-like material made from the reeds of the Nile. There was also another script called demotic, which was even more simplified and cursive than hieratic, and which was used for business and legal documents. Demotic was also the script that was used on the Rosetta Stone, the famous artifact that helped decipher the hieroglyphs in the 19th century. The seventh fact is that ancient Egyptians were obsessed with the afterlife, and they went to great lengths to preserve their bodies and souls for eternity. The Egyptians believed that a person had several components of their being, such as the body, the ka, the ba, the ark, and the name. The ka was the life force, the ba was the personality, the ark was the immortal spirit, and the name was the identity. All these aspects had to be protected and reunited in the afterlife, or else the person would cease to exist. To ensure this, the Egyptians practiced mummification, a process that involved removing the internal organs, drying the body with salt, wrapping it with linen bandages, and applying resin and oils. The mummy was then placed in a coffin and surrounded by various objects and amulets that would help the deceased in the afterlife. The most important organ that was removed was the heart, which was believed to be the seat of intelligence and emotion. The heart was weighed against a feather of truth in the afterlife, and if it was lighter, the person would enter the paradise of Osiris. If it was heavier, the person would be devoured by a monster called Ammit. The eighth fact is that ancient Egyptians built some of the most impressive monuments and structures in the world, such as the pyramids, the Sphinx, and the temples. The pyramids are the most famous, and they were built as tombs for the pharaohs and their consorts. The largest and oldest pyramid is the Great Pyramid of Giza, which was built for the pharaoh Khufu around 2560 BC. It is estimated that it took 20 years and 2.3 million blocks of stone to build, and that it was originally 146 meters tall. The pyramid was also aligned with the cardinal points and the stars, and it had a complex system of chambers and passages inside. The Sphinx is another iconic monument, and it is a mythical creature with the body of a lion and the head of a human. It is located near the pyramids of Giza, and it is believed to represent the pharaoh Khafre, who ruled around 2500 BC. The Sphinx is 73 meters long and 20 meters high, and it is carved from a single block of limestone. The temples are another example of the architectural achievements of the Egyptians, and they were built as places of worship for the gods and the pharaohs. The most famous temple is the Karnak temple, which is located in Thebes, and which was dedicated to the god Amun. The temple complex covers an area of 200 hectares, and it consists of several buildings, pylons, obelisks, statues, and columns. The temple was also decorated with elaborate reliefs and inscriptions, and it was the site of many festivals and ceremonies. The ninth fact revolves around the ancient Egyptians, boasting a culturally rich tapestry encompassing art, music, literature, and science. Proficient artists, the Egyptians crafted an array of symbolic and religious works, including paintings, sculptures, jewelry, and pottery, adhering to strict rules of proportion and perspective. Their musical inclination manifested in the mastery of instruments like harps, lutes, flutes, drums, and cymbals, accompanying diverse occasions like festivals, funerals, and battles. Literary prowess shone through various topics such as history, religion, poetry, and fiction, inscribed using scripts like hieroglyphs, hieratic, and demotic on materials like papyrus, stone, and wood. Renowned works like the Pyramid Texts, the Book of the Dead, the Story of Sinuhe, and the Tale of Two Brothers highlight Egypt's literary legacy. Scientific contributions were equally impressive, with advancements in astronomy, mathematics, medicine, and engineering. Observing celestial movements, they developed a solar and lunar-based calendar, demonstrating proficiency in arithmetic, fractions, geometry, and algebra. A sophisticated medical system allowed them to diagnose and treat diseases, complemented by inventions like the plow, lever, ramp, balance, and clock. The 10th fact is that ancient Egyptians practiced incest and inbreeding. Due to the belief that the royal bloodline was divine and sacred, the pharaohs often married their siblings, cousins, or even parents. This was done to preserve the purity of the dynasty and to emulate the gods, who were also believed to be incestuous. For example, the god Osiris married his sister Isis, and the god Horus was their son. The practice of incest was not limited to the royal family, however. It was also common among the commoners, especially in rural areas, where the population was small and isolated. The result of this inbreeding was a high rate of genetic defects and diseases, such as infertility, deformities, and mental disorders. Some of the most notorious examples of incestuous and inbred pharaohs are Akhenaten, Tutankhamun, and Cleopatra. Akhenaten was the son of Amenhotep III and his sister Tiye, and he married his half-sister Nefertiti. He also had 6 daughters with her, and he married 2 of them. Tutankhamun was the son of Akhenaten and one of his sisters, and he married his half-sister Ankhesenamun. He also had 2 stillborn daughters with her, and he suffered from various health problems such as a club foot, a cleft palate, and malaria. Cleopatra was the daughter of Ptolemy XIII and his sister Cleopatra V, and she married her brother Ptolemy III. She also had affairs with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, and she committed suicide by snakebite. The 11th and final fact is that the ancient Egyptians possessed an unconventional sense of humor. Beyond their dignified facade, they reveled in amusement, finding joy in jokes, puns, riddles, and satire to navigate life's challenges. Humor served as a coping mechanism and a means to mock authorities, foreigners, and even deities. Illustrations of Egyptian wit include the satire of the trades, lampooning various professions with a nod to the scribe as the preeminent one. The tale of the eloquent peasant, exposing official corruption and injustice. The Turin erotic papyrus, depicting diverse sexual scenarios, some involving animals, and the contendings of Horus and Seth, narrating the comical rivalry between the 2 gods for Egypt's throne. Irony and sarcasm were also part of their comedic arsenal, evident in instances like the sarcastic graffiti during Pharaoh Akhenaten's imposition of the Aten cult and the sardonic poem praising Pharaoh Ramses III after his assassination, subtly mocking his reign. Conclusion: these are some of the dirty facts about ancient Egypt that you may not have learned in school. They show that the Egyptians were not only a remarkable and advanced civilization, but also a complex and diverse one, with their quirks and flaws. They also show that the Egyptians were human, just like us, and that they had their ways of dealing with life and death, joy and sorrow, order and chaos. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.